Twisted Metal 2 is of course the sequel to the original Twisted Metal game that launched with the PlayStation. While Twisted Metal 1 was pretty okay, there's little question that Twisted Metal 2 essentially one-upped the original in every single way when it was released a year later. Everything from the graphics to the gameplay was a massive improvement, and instantly became the car combat game that every other game in the genre would measure itself up to for years to come. So just what makes Twisted Metal 2 so damn awesome, and how does it hold up all these years later? Well, strap yourself in, kids, because we're about to blow this game wide open. Twisted Metal 2 is what you'd call a car combat game, or if you're super fancy, a vehicular combat game. So just what the hell is a car combat game? Well, basically it's a game where you choose your character and or car that looks like it came from a version of Mad Max that was made by a 12-year-old, and then get thrown into an arena to blow everything up that's coming at you. Explode everyone into a fiery inferno, and you get to move on to the next stage to do it all over again. Twisted Metal 2 is exactly that game, though it's a bit more in-depth than just ramming your car into other cars. I mean, you can totally do that if you want to, but it won't get you very far in the game at all. Each character and vehicle has its own statistics to take into account before you jump into the game. Some are super fast but have very little armor. Others are literal tanks that can take a ton of damage but move at a snail's pace. Each car also gets their own individual special weapon that does large chunks of damage when you can actually use them. So experimenting with each character is a must to find which one suits your playstyle best, especially with just how different each car and special weapon is. Once you select your favorite vehicle, you're thrown straight into the game with virtually nothing in the way of a tutorial, along with enemies that aren't going to ease you into things either. Seriously, these guys are out for blood the second you spawn, so you'll most likely be immediately bombarded with missiles and machine guns with no idea what's even going on. Basically, your goal is to take down every other car with the weapons you already have, plus the ones you'll be able to pick up around the map. Each car automatically starts off with a machine gun that's got unlimited ammo, and the aforementioned special weapon to use. Though the machine gun does almost no damage at all, and if you run out of your special weapon, well, you gotta wait for it to charge back up again to use. Every other weapon has to be picked up around the map, and you'll need every one that you can get your hands on. If you don't, you'll quickly find yourself out of anything useful, and that's when things can go really bad for you. The best way to play is to keep moving while exploring the track. This way you'll likely be coming across a constant supply of weapon pickups to use while your special weapon charges up. Speaking of those weapon pickups, you'll find a good variety to use on your opponents. From homing missiles to remote detonated bombs, there's a ton to use, and they're all fairly unique in how they fire, so you just can't blind fire everything you've got at the person in front of you. Missiles will of course behave like missiles, but some have to be shot with precise accuracy, while the others will generally home in on enemies. Besides missiles, you also get stuff like firebombs that shoot out in massive arcs. That can be kinda hard to aim at enemies, but does a ton of damage if you can manage to hit someone with them. You also get the aforementioned remote bombs that have to be placed and then exploded from a distance, and are great for setting up some multi-car traps. And that's just a few of the weapons you'll find lying around. It's an impressive lineup of stuff that constantly makes you change up your strategy depending on what you've got selected, which is way more fun than just unloading a bunch of weapons that all do the same thing, like so many other car combat games did. The strategy gets even deeper when you realize each car comes with their own set of fighting game-like moves that allows you to do everything from putting a shield around yourself to freezing other cars. Doing these types of moves will drain your special meter, however, so you have to know what to use and when to have the maximum advantage in every fight. There's nothing more fun than throwing out a perfectly timed freeze ball at your enemy, and then putting a remote bomb down next to him while you drive off, watching the explosion behind you. It goes a long way in letting you be creative in how you go about taking down each enemy. Basically, if you can dream up some wild plan of attack in your head, you can most likely do it in the game as well. And ultimately pulling it off is incredibly satisfying. Even though all of this would probably be pretty fun in a boring arena setting, Twisted Metal 2 goes the extra mile and throws in some incredible stages to fight in as well. Some are huge and sprawling, while others are more compact. They all usually have tons of different routes to take to run away from or find enemies, while some also feature unique obstacles, like falling off the top of skyscrapers to your death below. Each stage also comes with a ton of secrets to be found that lead to new areas or powerful weapon pickups. There's generally so much to drive around and explore in each stage that you could easily forget there are 5 or more other cars to destroy, if they weren't all constantly shooting missiles straight at your face. Mastering each level is imperative to having an advantage over the AI, since their ruthlessness is only outmatched by their cheap-ass tactics. You'll be getting sandwiched between cars regularly, while getting hit with missiles that seem to have been fired by a goddamn wizard. So getting a leg up on them by being able to memorize each level and using those secret areas is a must if you want to get very far in the game. Getting far in the game will also require you getting the hang of those car controls as well. While firing weapons is easy enough, actually controlling your car with a shred of accuracy is another story altogether. Calling Twisted Metal 2's controls loose would be the understatement of the year. These cars control like each stage is made out of ice and then sprayed with a coating of WD-40. You'll probably spend the first 10 minutes of the game just trying to get your car to stay on the road, as it'll just be sliding and flying all over the place, especially if you pick one of those smaller, lighter vehicles. Thankfully though, you should start getting the hang of things shortly, pulling off some spectacular acrobatics while shooting missiles like a pro. While some people may think that the controls are a bit too wonky, I've always felt that they added a sense of speed and maneuverability to the game that was rarely topped in any other car combat game. So if you can stick with it, I guarantee it'll be hard to go back to the slower, more realistic controls of games released afterwards. Honestly, the best thing I can say about Twisted Metal 2 is just it's damn fun to play. It's not trying to be some realistic sim or anything, obviously. It just relishes in being a super silly video game, wanting you to pick one of these insane cars and lose your mind playing it without ever once questioning why none of it makes any sense at all. Hell, I wish more games were like that these days. Twisted Metal 2 is an absolute masterclass in car combat, and as far as I'm concerned was never surpassed. Sure, its sequels were fun, but none ever had the sheer fun factor that Twisted Metal 2 dished out every single second you played it. So if you ever get the chance to check out Twisted Metal 2, do yourself a favor and pick it up. It honestly hasn't aged well at all in a lot of ways, but it's still fun to play if you can just get the hang of those car controls. If you can, then you're in for hours of fun, and one of the wildest rides you'll ever have in any car combat game.